happening in Syria, the large amount of propaganda, and a little bit of history. Over a decade at this point, Syrians rose up against their oppressor, Bashar al-Assad. What followed that uprising was a tremendous amount of pain. Bashar al-Assad was supported by Russia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and through those roots was able to use chemical weapons on his own people. Now, right now, you may be hearing that, oh, so you support ISIS if you don't support Assad. Let's make a couple things clear. A lot of dictators need an enemy to uphold their own power. While Assad was imprisoning innocent women, children, men, you know the type of people he was releasing from prison? Those who would later go on to join ISIS and had violent tendencies. He wouldn't release the women, he would release those with violent tendencies. Why is that? He helped in the creation of ISIS because then he could use it as a propaganda tool against every Syrian who spoke out against him, which is something we see in the media right now especially. Additionally, I want to talk about the similarity in propaganda that Israel uses and Assad's regime uses. For example, calling people who save people from under the rubble, such as the White Helmets, ISIS. A lot of your favorite white tanky influencers also have think pieces about how the White Helmets are ISIS. Some of them are big organizations, and I'm not trying to create problems, so I'm not going to name them. However, this has been a tactic that has been used for years. Now, what about Palestinian Syrians? They have also lost their lives to Assad's regime. Many Palestinian activists, poets, writers for years have been speaking up against Assad. I understand maybe right now you're seeing some pro-Palestine pages posting pro-Assad propaganda. However, no, they were never fully pro-Palestine pages. A lot of them started as pro-Assad pages and transformed into working on something else. Additionally, there's a lot of propaganda going around about these rebels pulling down pictures of Palestine, flags of Palestine, when in reality, they are flags and pictures that have nothing to do with Palestine. But you want to know what they did pull up? Now, you don't have to listen to my video. You can go find a Syrian person to watch, but I do encourage you to listen to actual Syrian people and not your favorite white influencer who learned about Palestine yesterday. History of Syria and why you shouldn't be getting your news from Assadists. For one thing, they can't even tell our countries apart. Here's one photo circulating, Syria in the 70s. This is a picture of Iran. Secondly, there is no mandated hijab in Syria, so this post doesn't even make any sense. Why post it? What is the purpose of a post like this? It's to delegitimize a movement based on human rights and reduce it down to miniskirts. Now, let's get into the history part. Bashar's father, Hafez al-Assad, became president in 1971. He and his son have ruled for decades under an authoritarian regime. Now, when the uprisings first began in Syria, they were started for fair and free elections. Democracy. Do not let this confuse you with the United States bringing democracy to the Middle East. These uprisings were started by Syrians and led by Syrians. Now, although this became a proxy war, the United States was limited to about 2 rebel groups, while Assad's own regime got 71% of their weapons from Russia between 2008 and 2012. Additionally, the Islamic Republic of Iran wanted Assad to remain in power, so Syria became a battleground for other countries using these proxies to go at each other. 4. Regional interest. Now, I'm never going to praise the United States, I'm never going to praise Israel, they have done nothing but bring destruction to the Middle East. But please remember that every movement is not a secret CIA coup d'etat. Is the CIA behind a lot of coups that destabilize countries? Yes. Is a freedom movement started by the indigenous population automatically a CIA coup? No, and the CIA bet on this division. For example, Operation Ajax in Iran. The CIA eventually admitted to the coup d'etat. Not for decades later, because Iranians grew so much distrust with each other that the CIA didn't even have to do any more coups because we attacked each other. You cannot delegitimize every movement and reduce it to a CIA-backed coup. What happens when you open a video right now from an Assadist? They are pointing fingers and calling everyone ISIS or CIA. When did asking for the right to exist automatically make you a CIA operation? Are people coming out of prison for the first time in 10 years some kind of long con from the United States? Yes, Western propaganda exists, and yes, we should call it out, but what about Russian propaganda? Russia spent $1.4 billion per year on Syrian propaganda. Their goal to label everyone that doesn't agree with Assad as a T-word. Since the war began, these attacks have been racially motivated. Any opposition fighter with a beard who could pray is a T-word. Doesn't this sound like propaganda that you're familiar with? Additionally, on my last video, I saw comments saying, Assad never used chemical weapons on his own people. Russian bots were caught denying the chemical attacks before they happened. Is that not telling that they were prepared to lie? Are the billions of dollars spent on tanky think tanks not telling? What about the comments I'm getting from accounts with 0 followers and 0 following calling me Mossad? Now let's talk about Palestinians and Syrians. Palestinians and Syrians have a long intertwined history. Many Palestinians sought refuge in Syria after the Nakba. That was in 1948. Palestinians, just like Syrians, have suffered under the Assad regime. Let's talk about the Al Yarmouk camp. It was once the largest Palestinian refugee camp in Syria, and it became the site of immense suffering during the conflict. Assad seized the camp. This caused starvation, displacement, and death. And Palestinians in that camp were one of the first to speak out against Assad, aligning with Syrians for liberation. Palestinian activists since the Arab Spring have stood with Syria for a democracy. In return, many Syrians also stand with Palestinian liberation. Assad knows this, so he uses the divide tactic. He uses some of the Palestinian fractions, such as the Palestinian PLFP, to hurt not only Syrians, but innocent Palestinians as well. What's happening in Syria is not a random uprising, and you're allowed to question intentions of everyone. That is your given right. But let us agree on one thing, that Assad has used chemical weapons on his own people, has hurt his own people, and you should decide where you want to get your news. Free Syria. Assad's Wikipedia has already been edited, in office until December 8th, 2024. Celebrate Syria. Don't celebrate Syria. You don't know what's coming next. No, you tell me, Robert from Wisconsin, what's coming next? Tell me about your knowledge that goes beyond the Syrian people. Syrian people are not dumb. Never has there been an oppressed group that rise up against their oppressor and they're met with cookies. What is the language we use for people who rise up? Call people T-words. What did they call Haitians when they rose up against their oppressor? This had to be witchcraft. Surely they're all witches. They sold their souls to the devil to rise up. Syrian people understand they have a long fight ahead. You are not a revolutionary thinker for thinking that the path could be difficult. To the tankies I've been fighting all week who love Assad, enjoy this video of people using Hafiz Assad as a sled. Assad sled. How does it feel? Well, I know how you feel because now you're turning on the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is hilarious. Happy you guys realized that the Islamic Republic of Iran would sell someone out for half of a cracker, and that you guys claim to be Marxists and communists, yet you're supporting a regime that kills communists by the tens of thousands. Nonetheless, Syrian people rose up. They fought against your propaganda. They fought against you calling them ISIS. Let them celebrate. Have you seen the videos coming out of Syria? People in Assad's torture chamber, not even Bashar al-Assad, his father's torture chamber, didn't know what year it is. Not Saddam Hussein came and saved them. They have no recollection of what's going on. Some of the videos, I can't show it because I noticed one of the accounts that did just got their whole page wiped. There's just children. They're like this big. Children in those torture chambers. Hundreds of thousands lost their lives, millions displaced, and you have the nerve to tell Syrian people, oh, don't celebrate, you don't know what's ahead. Thank you so much for telling Syrian people how to feel. You, as a random white guy in the Midwest, you are the one with all the answers. Enjoy this video Saleh posted of Palestinians celebrating for their Syrian brothers and sisters. Syria is going to be the next Iraq. Syria is going to be the next Libya. Maybe take a look in the mirror and realize that you are being racist. Maybe think for a second that not all brown people are the same. Think for a second that Saddam Hussein is different than Assad and Iraqi people are different than Syrians, and just because you saw some brown people do something, the other brown people in a different country doing it does not mean they're identical. Can you imagine reading a history book and seeing every time someone rose against oppression, someone was like, well, this reminds me of Libya? Let's go to the comments that say stuff like this. Oh my God, they're from like super real looking profiles, right? Western propaganda is real, but so is Russian propaganda, and you need to realize the billions of dollars Russia is invested into changing the narrative. I'm also seeing people post stuff like, this is 100% US backed. Where's your statistic coming from? I didn't know you're on the ground in Syria taking a poll right now. That's crazy. Share the poll with me. You cannot say blanket statements like that about people who have been oppressed for decades. You cannot say, this is 100% this, when you have no idea what those people have been through and why they rose up, what they could have ties to. You've just decided that they are 100% US backed. The people saying Israel just entered Syria for the first time in 50 years. See what happens? For years, Israel has broken the zones and gone in. And guess what? They are freaking out that Assad is gone. And what are the Palestinians saying? Well, Palestinians in Gaza are celebrating for the Syrians. Palestinians at Al-Aqsa Mosque are celebrating for Syrians. While you guys sit at home and comment, this is the next Iraq. Seems like you want it to be.